Welcome back to the Northstar Politics show. Now, Trump has always been known for the art of the deal, and as a peace deal in Ukraine closes, another deal is brewing across the world. Off the coast of my home island, Trinidad and Tobago, Trump is trying a ting, and by a ting, I mean war crimes and airstrikes. Yes, the man who is supposedly known to be a peacemaker has threatened to overthrow Nicolas Maduro and invade Venezuela. Old habits die hard, I guess. And speaking of old habits, Sultana recently boycotted the first day of the Your Party conference, forcefully winning support for her own policies and effectively ousting the Corbyn regime. Trump, my boy, you can learn a thing or two from Zara about getting rid of a socialist dictator. Now look guys, I know the world is a depressing place, but according to Noah, one thing you shouldn't do is go to therapy. Yes, he thinks it's pointless and it doesn't help. Hear him land this and more on this episode today. Let's get into it.
Welcome back, people, to the Northstar Politics show, pushing political imagination.
Cheers!
The best thing to come out of Bo E3 since grime music itself.
Come on now.
You're tapped in with the boy Noah East.
Bullet.
The Milan Malcolm X. We didn't land on Bethnal Green. Bethnal Green landed on us.
Inspiration.
Different gravy, never lazy.
Rhymes.
And you know I'm here with the Enfield Eric Williams.
Some may say.
Sean Ramiz on every platform.
You know who I am.
We're talking about DreamWorks, Moses, live in the flesh. Let the people them go, Pharaoh.
Let my people go.
What are you telling me, stars them at home? Everyone at home, before you even get into the episode, we need you to like, comment, subscribe. Just comment showing love.
Actually, you know what? We've been so, the love has been so immense. You know what? You can skip this time.
Yeah.
We're getting too much. Dopamine's going to our head, you know?
Look at Sean getting carried away. Don't skip this time. Yeah, make sure you like it, all that kind of stuff.
Please.
But we're back.
Actually, they're going to need to like this one because we don't have a third person to carry us.
It's been a while since it's been me and you. I don't even like talking to this guy.
Come on now. Listen, we spend so much time together. But you know what? It is good to just come back to basics, first principles, because this is kind of like a special episode in some sense.
It is a bit of a milestone episode.
It is a milestone episode because we hit our targets 1K on YouTube, 5K on Instagram, 10K on TikTok, but who's counting?
Who's counting, man? And we're officially, this is kind of 8 weeks in.
Yeah, man,
the
for
2
sure.
month point is episode 9, 8 weeks in.
And all we can say is just thank you so much to people actually engaging.
What are people called? What do we call them?
Fine. The stars, them.
Shout out the stars, them. That's you. Each and every one of you stars back home. Yeah, shout out you.
And actually, it's a bit bittersweet for me because this is my last episode before the new year. In person, that
He's
is.
getting sent home.
In person.
Shabana Mahmood got him.
I'm getting deported back to Trinidad, to be honest. So.
Where are you off to?
So yeah, I'm literally just going to Canada for a good month.
A bit of R&R.
You know what it is? All my family are there. It's a great community. There's a lot of Trinidadian people there as well. So real, authentic West Indian food. I'm going to be locked into Northstar work because obviously I booked this time ago. We didn't expect Northstar to blow up in the way it did. So actually this R&R is really me just taking a break from my 9 to 5 to focus all our eyes on the Northstar. What about you though? What's life been saying?
I've been good, man. Recently been great. Done some writing recently. Wrote a very well researched piece, if I do say so myself, on the implications of the Israeli Zionist ethno-state.
Look at you.
Yeah,
look what you get up to in your spare time.
To unpack a few things if you want to tap into that. I've seen so many of the stars them getting involved. Noah East 9 on Substack.
I heard someone called you the modern day Socrates.
And you know who that was at home, a big fan of ours. Yeah, shout out
shout out to her,
absolute legend. What else have I been up to? Been having a good time recently. Busy with work. Had a lovely Saturday. Saturday was immense. And then on Sunday, I had an interview come out with Cory Doctorow.
Come on now, listen, we're taking it there, guys.
Bare facets of Guan.
Come on now.
So sometimes you got to show repertoire.
Yeah,
show dossier.
Yeah.
Show different kind of variety. So Cory Doctorow is a supremely intelligent technological genius who wrote a book called Inshitification. I think we can say that after a minute into a YouTube video. And I had the opportunity to sit down with him for Politics Joe. To discuss all things about the tech world.
But honestly, let's not even get soppy too early doors, but I'm proud of you, man. It's actually mad. I'm very, very proud of you, bro.
I appreciate it, because we've been reflecting, and the stars they might not know, but obviously Sean Ramiz, he was world famous before Northstar. My face wasn't on camera before Northstar. I was very much a low-key, private Insta, all that kind of goodness. And it took a lot from this guy to get me on camera.
Listen, I'm a talent scout, yeah? I know potential where I see it. And Noah, do you know what it is, though, for me? Cool, I've been on camera for a while, and people rate whatever takes I have, etc. But I've always said I actually stand on the shoulders of giants. Big giant right here,
louder,
man. Big
louder,
giant right
louder.
here, man.
But it is in Mandem fashion, I got to say, I'm trying to get like you, my boy. I'm trying to get like you, my guy. But no, honestly, it's been a crazy experience. Like these 8 weeks. I think I'm someone who's quite, and we'll maybe get into this later in the show or might let me learn, but I'm someone who can be very pessimistic and a bit like bleak in my outlook on life. So I think like seeing the response from so many people who either you think maybe they may not have your best interest or you just think they don't even think about me, but they're just voluntarily showing love.
Yeah.
And support has just been incredible to see.
And also, it's good to flex on the haters a little bit. You know who you are.
I ain't got no haters at this point, I'm realizing. But I think as well, just seeing responses from even a shout out like my Robbie, people that Munna, all these different kind of people. Hamid, he reached out to me talking about different stuff we brought up on the show. Countless people we could reel off right now who have got in contact. It's beautiful to see and it actually means so much.
No, for sure.
There's one thing we want to ask, like a little bit of a favor.
Go ahead then.
And on our website, there is a part where you can like go and support us. And we haven't really advertised this at all. But we are trying to work out a method for how we can keep the show running and self-sufficient. So we're going to work out how to publicize it at some point. But obviously, our ideological commitments are we don't want to put stuff behind a paywall. We also don't want to be like taking weird sponsors or advertising that doesn't fit with us.
Yeah.
So if you guys at home have like enjoyed the show at any point or think that it's something that you'd want to support and you want to see more of in the new year, we are taking it to a different level in the new year.
Inshallah.
Head to our website, northstarpolitics.com, and head to support us, and you can pick a £5 a month or £10 a month just to keep the lights on, really.
And listen, if you see us coming like Oliver Twist on your timeline saying, please, sir, can I have some more? Just begging, please. Just a little crumb.
These
just a little
two
crumb.
proud Caribbean men, yeah. And we're just saying, we actually don't want to take content away from you guys. So we want to keep it all free to air. But if you feel like you've got a spare £5 each month, send that Northstar's ways because we are going to go ballistic in the new year.
For sure.
We've already got things booked and busy, ready to go. I cannot wait for you guys to see it. But your support means more than anything.
For sure. I wanted to also bring up just a little interesting experience I had on the weekend, actually.
Chat to us.
So I was invited, and this is one of the many benefits of being a public figure, so to speak, to a very bougie charity event run by Muslim Aid. So it's 40 years celebrating.
I love charity.
40 years celebrating Muslim Aid.
I love Muslims.
And yeah, you do. It's facts. And it was really interesting because it kind of felt like a bit of like a Muslim Met Gala because particularly within the Muslim community, you have basically the charity sector is such a big part. So like a big name in the charity sector in perhaps a different community wouldn't be a big name overall, but in the Muslim community, big names in charity are big Muslim names. And it was really cool just to go there and just kind of like understand the environment, etc. And really just an interesting insight in the fact that Muslims have done so much in terms of charity throughout like history, in terms of responding and being first responders, even to like things not related to Muslims. But it's still a bit apolitical, still a bit neutral, still a bit silent. So it's kind of like, I guess someone's knocking down the wall all the time and Muslims are there to kind of like build brick by brick, build it back up.
Brick.
Yeah, not skillybang, but build it back up. But then they're not really addressing who's knocking it down in the first place. Who's the bully that keeps knocking it down? And I don't know, I've met a lot of people there, but it will just be interesting to get some people's thoughts just adjacent to all of this.
Yeah, so because they're becoming apolitical, they end up constantly providing solutions rather than a prevention.
Yeah, because like you can address the root cause by understanding. So who keeps doing these types of things in the first place? I'm not talking about natural disasters. Let's like be quite blunt, right? We're talking about a whole big talk about Gaza, but no one's really talking about Israel in all of it. So I found that quite interesting.
And it's weird because the charities have to tread quite lightly because as you become more institutionalized within funding arenas, you need to really worry about what you say and who you upset.
Exactly.
And that is quite interesting. Before we get into the state of play and whatnot, I wanted to reflect on what a couple of guests we had in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
Bro,
go ahead.
Those co-hosts, Sibo, and then into Yisrael from Nova.org.
I know, the streets were calling us Avengers. Right. Avengers, assemble.
Stars, then we've been treating you. Well. You've been eating good, and the response has been crazy. Yeah. Yisrael, he might have to come back on every now and then because
he has to.
The synergy was just beautiful.
As in, that was just a schooling session. Nova schools the Northstar boys, man.
I know Sibo's on his like Kendrick Lamar flex. Like, after the album's done, then he goes away. But then in a couple of years when he drops the next tape, wins the Grammy, he'll be back here.
Don't forget Champagne Socialist.
Champagne Socialist for me. If we're doing a full reflection, Champagne Socialist, legend in his own lunch hour. But
come on now.
Everyone knows about that one already.
Yeah, of course, it's true.
But yeah, incredible first 8 weeks. We're going to keep on tracking. We've got a brilliant co-host coming next week.
Yeah,
Sean's taking a week off here. I'm going to be sat here with a brilliant co-host. I cannot wait for you to
As in, you know what? I wouldn't let just anyone replace me. But this next co-host, yeah.
Serious
level
stuff.
Set.
And then we're going to keep on chugging throughout winter. And like I say, guys, head to the website, northstarpolitics.com, and check us out to support us. It means the world, and it will help us do crazy things.
It's my last wish before the new year, before I come back into this rightful seat.
There you go. And all you Muslims at home, consider that charity, like Sean said.
No, I never said that.
If you're so good at charity, yeah, make this one of them.
All right, should we get into it?
Look at that.
Welcome back to The State of Play, and if you are new here, this is basically where we go over some of the international stories and local stories. So last week we gave an update around Ukraine, and I actually wanted to give a quick update again because today all the news headlines are talking about how we are closer than ever to actually ending the Ukraine war. So, United States envoy Steve Witkoff is due to meet President Vladimir Putin to discuss a proposed peace plan to the end of the war in Ukraine. So, just to kind of give like the three main headlines, just so people can actually, really understand what's going on and why there's still this back and forth and this tension. The first main obstacle is territorial integrity. So this remains the biggest sticking point for Ukraine, okay, because Zelensky has made very clear that territorial concessions are the biggest challenge. However, Putin, Russia, big and bad are coming into these negotiations saying nah, we want parts of Donbass.
We need that. We need that.
Hashtag need that,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, they haven't been able to seize it in the last 4 years of the war, and there's been interesting discussion around why that is.
As in parts of Donbass are currently occupied, but they haven't been able to assert sovereign control over
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. And again, Putin has little desire to make any compromises. The second part is this, sticking point of NATO membership. So a core demand from Russia is that they want Ukraine to renounce their aspirations to join NATO and keep NATO out of this. Under this US plan, it's likely to be the case that Russia will actually win on that one. And finally, it's this thing about security guarantees. So this is actually the new thing this week, where basically in the absence of NATO, European countries are trying to work out exactly how can we make this a credible commitment for Ukraine and ensure that this doesn't happen again or Russia doesn't strike again. And so they're basically pledging we're going to give some sort of military support just for the future. But of course, Russia's strongman state is saying, if you want beef, we'll take it there. We'll take it there, innit? And that's basically
war
what
ready.
they're saying they're war ready.
I'm on what you're on.
Precisely. So I just wanted to give a little update on that because it is seeming like we're close. But no, any quick thoughts on that?
I think it's a tricky one because you will hear a lot of the rhetoric around this proposed ceasefire deal. It will say, it's infringing upon the sovereignty of Ukraine. But I'm probably a bit more, and formally the international relations theory term would be a bit more of a realist about this in terms of, okay, maybe we see there being an infringement on Ukraine's sovereignty. They wouldn't be able to join NATO. It wouldn't be able to have an army of over 600,000 active staff members or soldiers. But in reality, there is a whole matrix of power structures that any country intersperses itself with. Is the fact that the UK can't activate its trident nuclear deterrent without US support, does that mean the UK is no longer a sovereign country? No, we interact within a globalized system. And I've always thought that it would be very difficult to have a NATO member on such a pivotal Russian border, such as we've seen with Finlandization in Finland, but definitely for Ukraine. So I don't see that necessarily as a big shock. I'd always expected that would be a red line for Russia.
No, definitely. And I think we just basically have to monitor the situation till it comes out, really.
The other thing I'll say is that this is bread and butter, chicken and chips, barbecue chicken for Donald Trump. Because one thing that he wants more than anything else is for the US to maintain its economic global status or global position without any of the political commitments. So his dream world, because in NATO there's the Article 5 agreement, which is if any NATO country is infringed upon or invaded, then all NATO countries will respond as if it was their own sovereign territory. And for Ukraine to not be part of NATO, but to have these sort of security assurances from Europe, that's exactly what Trump wants. His whole thing is, Europe, you don't pay enough for your own safety. We're not getting involved on your behalf. So you pay for it, you sort it out.
And I think that's why someone like Trump is a fascinating figure, also perhaps a blessing and a curse, because this is in many ways the end of US empire, because Trump has become synonymous with US empire. So US empire has always sort of had a sort of global hegemony, has some sort of ideology around.
What does that mean? What does hegemony mean?
Just an overall power or control over the world in terms of influencing the kind of structures and culture, etc. So now it feels like we're in a time where you can't really distinguish or make distinct Trump and the US, Because when you look at all of these international deals, behind the scenes somewhere, Trump is personally benefiting
and
from
perhaps
all
also
of these
because
things.
he's deviating so much from US tradition or US status quo policy, from whatever we call it, the deep state, or whoever it might be, the sort of traditional state actors that are consistent throughout different governments.
And in the way that he's actually just a lot more explicit and upfront with the fact that, yeah, he's trying to make a quick buck out of these things.
But I don't know if it's a quick buck necessarily, because there is long-standing investment ownership that the US would have in the ceasefire deal I saw. But I would say maybe there's a transition out of boots on the ground empire to a more economic neo-colonial empire.
For sure. And speaking of an economic neo-colonial empire,
Chat to me.
Trump is attacking Venezuela. Yes, Trump is threatening Venezuela with military action very soon and has ordered Maduro to flee the country. So that's the current president of Venezuela. So just to give the viewers at home a bit of a timeline on this. For a few months now, Trump has framed Venezuela as a narco-terrorist state whose drug criminal networks have threatened American security. So between September and October, the Trump administration committed deadly air and naval strikes on vessels linked to Venezuela. So what that actually means is that US troops have carried out at least 21 airstrikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean and Pacific since September, killing at least 83 people. Now, bear in mind, there's actually been no public independent verification of their identity or the presence of narcotics, or whether they even posed an armed threat. And this story is a bit close to home to me because Trinidad, where I'm from, is on the coast of Venezuela, and 2 Trinidadian men have died as a result of being hit by these airstrikes because their families literally just said they're just fishermen. They're not part of this drug trade network,
Yeah, we're all just fishermen. Yeah.
All right, hear my man.
Yeah, we're all fishermen at the end of the day.
And it's entirely concerning.
The irony, though.
Yeah,
so what they're kind of accusing Venezuela of is funding government activity through narco industry or drug trade, essentially. When in fact, like, the US has the archetype of using the crack epidemic to help fund wars in Vietnam and throughout sort of the McCarthyism.
Yeah, I know.
It's bonkers.
I mean, we'll get into the irony.
Wrote the playbook on this.
No, exactly. And yeah, just like as it escalates a bit more. Recently, Trump has declared the Venezuelan airspace closed in its entirety, and he actually basically gave Maduro an ultimatum to say, just leave right now, because they're planning a coup, and he's again very explicit about it. He's very upfront, and look, this is obviously framed under the guise of a war on narcotics, but this isn't really the case at all, because if you follow the money, like we've just always speak about, bro. The US has been interested in just that area for a very, very long time, and regime change.
Weirdly enough, this kind of touches on the essay I wrote on the weekend, which was called Israel Must Make the Desert Bloom. And what we're seeing here is the US will invoke ideas of sovereignty and state rights when it comes to Ukraine or themselves or whoever it is. But they're very happy to dispossess or to infringe upon quote-unquote sovereignty in the case of Venezuela. And the way they would justify that ex post, so after the fact, is that Venezuela is conducting their civic society in a way that is not effectively displaying sort of ownership of their territory, of their identity, of their sovereignty, of their autonomy, because they are a narco-terrorist state. That word is the implication here is that invalidates their claim to autonomy. But in fact, that is not the nature of legitimacy. Legitimacy is ex ante, the consent of the people under which the power is exerted. So if there is like the ability for the state of Venezuela to exert control over the people within their territorial boundaries with any sort of legitimate consent, then that is sovereignty. That is where sovereignty lies.
But I feel like when we try to hold these countries to their kind of liberal, kind of philosophical standards, one of the interesting things is when you look into the history of liberalism and you look into thinkers like Mill, you look into thinkers like Locke, they also had this kind of rule for us and rule for them. And that kind of dynamic of the othering of, whether you'd go into Locke's own words or Mill's own words about the savages and how the savages need to be ruled by despotism, etc. That dynamic still plays out to this day. So as much as we can call them out on like a sort of hypocritical nature of this, is this not just the nature of liberalism itself?
Maybe I'll just forget to take my essay entirely, because basically what I say is that the way that they were able to sort of covertly get this understanding in is through, they would say that, we're dealing with humans and humans gain ownership by mixing their labor with the land. But humans is a presumptive term that isn't neutral, and labor is a presumptive term that isn't neutral. So if by any means we can justify some other Homo sapien being less human, or their labor, which is in a broad sense, politicians, the way they organise their society being less effective or less legitimate, then we can dispossess them. And this, even to take it from Mill to Mills, Charles Mills, he developed this idea of the racial contract. So underpinning the social contract theory of liberalism, we also have the racial contract, where there is a hierarchy of races within this humanity, which denotes a hierarchy of sovereignty or a hierarchy of legitimate claims to self-ownership.
And it's good you bring up Charles Mills, because within this and within the sort of discourse, it's quite, especially when it comes to drugs, that this idea of a racial hierarchy is always quite obvious, considering that people want to talk about the drug trade and how that leads to, I don't know, some sort of degeneracy or crime or ruining the country, ruining the social fabric. But people need to realize this is just supply and demand. Who is demanding the drugs? Which classes are actually consuming the drugs? And those are going to be the types that, you know, brush shoulders with Trump, the elites, right? These people from these backgrounds who might, on the one hand, perpetuate and support a lot of these kind of quite inhumane, disgusting, war crimes.
Exactly. Let's concede Trump's assumption about Venezuela or characterization about Venezuela that it is a narco-terrorist state. Well, in that way, isn't the US like a industrial terrorist state?
No, of course.
Venezuela's exporting drugs, the US is exporting arms.
Yeah, and also like, okay, cool. Let's suppose that this is true. Every single one of those boats were drug traffickers, and they're trying to get drug into Trinidad, and then Trinidad's being a port all the way to the rest of the US. Like, that is a well-documented phenomenon, okay? It happens. What? So they deserve to be airstriked?
Yeah.
Mental. It's
no
bonkers.
Trial, no rule of law, no anything like that. Just the autonomy of executive order from Donald Trump.
It's, disgusting.
US hegemony in tatters because they're actually undermining their own global order, as they always have done, but even more fragrantly. There's no tact or guile to it anymore.
And, you know, this was a man who was being teed up for the Nobel Peace Prize. We are the peacemakers, they cry out. And on sort of the left hand, on the right hand, they're just doing all this nonsense.
I mean, but like, classic story, though, we know who the Nobel Prize is named after, so Trump in that way is a fitting recipient.
So, should we get on something a bit lighter news then?
Has to be lighter.
It has to be light. After that. So, our favourite party, your party,
my party.
It is your party.
It is my party.
It is your party.
Well, now officially, it is actually, your party decided they're going to be named what?
Your party.
There we go. Look at that. And they say left-wing people can't put their heads together.
That reminds me of, like, you know, the scene from Rush Hour, where it's like
I have seen that.
You ever seen that with Chris Tucker? Anyways, over the weekend, the Your Party conference took place, and of course, in true Your Party fashion, it was very messy. So, like you said, the good news, I'll start with the good news, right? Your Party is now named Your Party.
Come on.
Thank God. And to be honest, it was a genuinely like quite engaged and diverse membership. Like, you saw a bunch of people from across the country come, whether that's public sector, ethnic minorities, I don't know, disabled people, politically disillusioned, etc. Right? Like, as much as we can take the piss out of Your Party, no one can deny that they're actually doing real coalition building. There's a lot of different types of people from the country going and attended. However, before it started, so the bad news is that Corbyn's team preemptively expelled small, members of small socialist groups because they were members of other parties, even before the party decided on whether or not there should be dual membership allowed. So people are obviously kind of calling him out as a hypocrite and comparing it to the Labour witch hunt days, basically where under perhaps like Keir Starmer, for example, he expelled a bunch of radical, quote-unquote radical socialist members. Zara Sultana, in her true fashion, also boycotted the event on the first day. And this is because she blamed unelected, faceless bureaucrats for making decisions about the party's governance from behind the scenes that she didn't agree with. So she did attend the second day. But to be honest, it was a big exhibition of democracy and member-led decision-making, because she had two main policies and two main, governance structures that she wanted to implement. And the members voted on it. And they actually voted in her favour. So the first is actually allowing dual membership. So she won that around 69 to 31. And also adopting a collective member leadership model to 52-48, effectively sidelining Corbyn, because de facto, or in practice, Corbyn was basically the main leader. He basically had the main power, and a lot of this tension and struggle, which we'll talk about, is Zara basically trying to shoehorn her way in to be the second legitimate leader, in which she kind of publicly claimed so much. And honestly, bro, it just reminded me of the thick of it. If anyone has seen The Thick of It at home, it's one of the most brilliant political comedies.
The KSI song.
Oh my gosh, hear this guy, man. Talk about the KSI song.
I'm trying to get different generations involved.
And honestly, even there was like a viral video of someone accusing Jeremy Corbyn of being a Zionist.
Should we get into that in a bit?
We can get into that a bit. But
where should we start?
start with just your thoughts around that kind of initial mess and that mishap.
Well, so earlier in the year, we spoke about this on like an early podcast, but at the start of the year when Northstar was trying to work out, because we did exist before the podcast, trying to work out what we think of politics, one big theory that I cooked up was like, people are going to vote for ideologues. And so what we've seen is like the duopoly of conservative Labour and the intermittent coalition with the Lib Dems has been co-opted by the neoliberals for sort of financial elite, is that people are voting for certain things, and then once in power, incentives change for those in power to then acquiesce to the sort of goals or aims of that neoliberal financial elite. And what that means then is that people's ballot has no tangible effect. It loses all meaning. Democracy loses all legitimacy. And over time, what people have come to realize is that the only way for my ballot or my vote to maintain any legitimacy or power is for me to vote for an ideologue. What do we mean by an ideologue? Well, someone who is intimately wedded to the idea they espouse and has a track record of supporting this when it wasn't popular and when it is popular, when it will be popular in the future. So Nigel Farage is a great example. He was Brexit when it wasn't popular, he was Brexit when it was popular, he'll be Brexit again if it isn't popular. And if you vote for him, there's a level of confidence that even though I might not agree with all he says, at least I know he will do what he says or pursue that. So the problem I have with your party is, having thought of that, when I see your party come out of nowhere, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they are totally flipping the nature of politics as it stands. Instead of coming to the people as politicians and saying, I have understood the lecture, I've listened to the people, and this is my stall I'm setting out, however minimal that might be, I am setting out a certain stall, and come and support me if you agree. What they're saying is, we are wishy-washy and we are amorphous to whatever it might be. This leaves it totally susceptible to rampant entryism, if it's easy for me to say, rampant entryism.
Yeah.
It means that people don't even understand what they're really voting for, and also understand that this party, it has no ideology that is married to.
But I think you might need to, because I think on the one hand you talk about there's a need for ideologues, and then you define it as basically kind of comparing it to Farage and how he stood for the same principles, regardless of the political weather and the context. However, someone like Zara Sultana and someone like Corbyn, they're both ideologues in their own right.
That's the problem.
So
that's the big problem.
So then what's the downfall then? Is it then they're not truly like good enough at being ideologues? No,
they are. Like, Jeremy Corbyn is literally the perfect example of someone who has like one of the most pristine voting records within UK Parliament. So he has the ability to say, this is my track record, this is the manifesto pledge that I stand on, support me if you want. But instead what he signed up to is a party which is like, even though I have this perfect track record of me being totally wedded to a good ideology of like moderate or modern socialism, this party is totally decided by a membership who hasn't gained that level of support that I have in my 30, 40-year career as a member of parliament. But so that's, they had a brilliant opportunity to build off the backs of their political skill, but they kind of forfeited that.
No, definitely. But that's the thing. I think the Corbyn side have definitely tried to basically impose some sort of vision, some sort of structure onto the Your Party launch, etc. And then obviously with like Zara coming through and kind of perhaps messing it up, if you want to call it that, or like kind of derailing it, it didn't really like lead to like, you know, their enabled outcomes. But that's because it was the way it is now is democracy. That's what people.
No, that's not how democracy works.
But then that's what people demanded, right?
But it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what democracy is. Democracy is when we go to the general election. Democracy is when we en masse vote for the people that we want in power within your own small it's like, for example, it's like. Yeah,
so there's democracy.
You and your mum, when you go home
right?
tonight, you and your mum, when you discuss what's for dinner, is that a democratic decision?
I mean, what if we both vote on having a dinner?
Not, though. It's not. That's not the way that unit of organisation functions.
As in, are you saying, okay, so if me and my mum both like...
She tells you what's for dinner, you say thank you very much.
Okay, but if that is how it goes, but it can be a democracy,
but it doesn't need to be.
Okay, fair. So that's what you're saying. Exactly. It doesn't need to be.
On a broad level, legitimacy for the British state comes from its democracy, but units of organisation don't function like that and don't need to function like that. It's inane.
So where do you think then the sort of impulse and the desire and the need from that kind of Your Party base comes from to think that everything needs to be a democracy?
Morgan McSweeney done a number on these lot.
Going on.
They're just scarred from how they got purged from the Labour Party. So now they're looking for any way to build legitimacy on the margin at every single level, when that's literally just not how it works. You need to take some risk. You need to set out your stall and say, this is what our party's about. This is what our party is fundamentally tied to. And that's why I keep bringing up this hypothetical of rampant entryism, as in literally within its constitution, there is nothing stopping this becoming a right-wing party. That is absolutely bonkers, is it not?
Well, I mean...
And this is what's allowed it to have so much bad press. Because if they came together, Zara Sultana, Jeremy Corbyn, and the rest of the Independent Alliance or Independent Non-Alliance or Independent Landlord Alliance, whatever's going on, if they came together and said, these are our minimal manifesto pledges or like party constitution pledges that we're happy with, we think we have a good enough pulse on the British electorate that this will get us a certain amount of like membership. Jeremy Corbyn alone has shown throughout his career that he could have done that. But the fact they came and basically said, we don't know any better than you.
Yeah.
That's not what people want to hear.
No, look, I mean, as your co-host and your best friend, I definitely completely agree. But I'm just trying to push back a bit.
And this is why Zach Polanski's out there going out saying, I believe in this, that, and the third.
No, he does say that, but then the Green Party do also have democratic structures where they do vote on little things all the time. Yeah, of course.
You need to have structures for people to be able to express their opinion. But what you don't need is for an opinion not to be able to be expressed as party policy unless it is voted on.
I think my thing is, right,
because what is the party?
But it's not necessarily... No, I agree, and it's very poorly defined. There's no sort of positive definition to it.
Even the name, my God, your party is relative to whoever you are.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we can talk about relativism all day. But I think one of the main problems is, and maybe if we shift the conversation there, though, is not necessarily about the desire or need or want for these people to, I don't know, do some democratic voting on every single stage, but rather that the leadership from top down. Because actually, it has been derailed from the get-go, right? On this entire journey, the thing I've been sort of most upset about, disappointed about, the thing I called up Amex about, shout out my capitalist just to get my £5 back.
is how Zara Sultana's behaved.
It's how she behaved, man. Honestly.
And we've avoided this for so long.
What, so you want to take it there?
We have to take it there.
Okay.
It has been absurd from start to finish.
Okay,
And remember, we're observing from the outside. We have a little bit of background information as well, which also doesn't lend itself to in her favour. But honestly, I don't know if I've seen anything discredit the left more than this in the past. The legitimate left, obviously, Keir Starmer, whatever it is.
And let's just spill the beans and colour in the picture a little bit. So, once upon a time, before Northstar Politics show and media was a thing, myself and Noah were basically pro bono consultants for various movements on the left. So we sort of carved out our names, working with a bunch of progressives, Palestinian or pro-Palestinian, independence in the 2024 election, etc. And so, as a sort of hangover from that, a year on, we were approached by some members on the kind of Corbyn side, so that's maybe our bias, right, to help with the media and communications and the strategy around the launch of your party. And the person who reached out to us...
Fair, we got involved, we got approached by different people from different...
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, that was the first warning sign, right? Because so many different people are telling us, oh, we want you to work with us, but don't tell that person. That person's coming to us and saying, we want you to work with us, but don't tell that person. So obviously, as two young people, we're just thinking, okay, fine, we're just trying to get involved. So let's see how we can navigate that maze, so to speak. But as we started getting closer to it and we started actually putting out work, we started thinking about strategy and, how to actually get things together. Myself and Noah were just basically given a bunch of empty promises that never came to pass. And we realized how from the inside... Bro, Team Corbyn, Team Sultana, bro, they don't even talk to each other. There's not even communication channels between each other. And on top of it all, it really just burst the bubble of realizing that, oh, wait, these politicians on the left who kind of preach all these principles, etc. And I'm not just saying Corbyn's absolved of this by any means, but there's a lot of ego there.
And
they care about their own careers.
Israel last week, which is how wedded are you to the actual goals that you espouse, and how much is about weird politicking. I wonder to think about this when you look at any politician. If the principles that you say you stand for could be attained by you fading out of the public eye and having no prestige or clout or whatever, and actually maybe going down as a nobody in history or even a bit of a villain in history, would you sacrifice it for that?
Yeah. No, exactly.
The way that Zara Sultana behaved, the way that Adnan Hussein's behaved, the way that some of these people have behaved, you would definitely not. There's far more about your individual achievements.
Well, to be fair, I'm not just backing Adnan Hussein out of just for the sake of it, but I think his reasons for leaving the party is very different to Sultana's. His one's more of a reaction to the internal politics that we actually experienced. I still don't rate the fact that he was a landlord, but putting that aside for a sec, it's disappointing.
And I also think we're going to take it even further, maybe.
Is how you're feeling? He's a bit tired, so he's delirious in it. So
I just think the political class in the UK is quite shit. Fundamentally,
That's real.
No, fundamentally, there is actually a lot less intelligence floating around Parliament than people at home would think.
Name 3 politicians you rate.
3 politicians I rate?
In this country.
The politicians have to be in Parliament?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, cool. Andy Burnham.
Yeah, okay, cool. Respecting
Eddie Dempsey.
Yeah, I'm respecting that.
And then should we go for Jeremy Corbyn then?
Okay, apart from Jeremy Corbyn.
I'll go for Liam Mohammed.
Fair, isn't it? But you didn't say your boy Zach Polanski, That's kind of bad.
But as in I'd go for more, but I'm trying to think of
Okay, fair. Okay, so why do you rate them, and then what makes them not shit versus the shit.
Okay. Andy Burnham develops clear ideology, presents it to the people in the form of Manchesterism. You might have seen his New Statesman interview a few months ago, and it's like he's doing the opposite of what your party's doing. He's laying out his stall. This is what I think about the world. Support me if you want to be involved.
Kind of new to his kind of story, though, right?
Very much new to his kind of story.
Because it's really
he's mayor of Manchester, by the way.
Yeah, but it's his experience as mayor that has really kind of actually shaped this new image of him.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I'm a bit cautious because obviously he's tried to be Labour leader for a few times.
I think it's okay people to change their opinion.
Yeah, I do too.
When it's actually a natural development rather than the David Lammy method.
Bro, don't get started David Lammy.
We won't go down there again, is it? But you know what I mean? It's a natural development. He's experienced different things as mayor rather than when he was in Parliament. He's developed this idea of Manchesterism and his philosophies around sort of market socialism or some level of governmental socialism.
Yeah.
Cool. Eddie Dempsey, just a big fan of how he communicates.
Real man.
Real man.
Real man.
And also very much a servant of his union members.
Yeah.
So I think that for me is his sort of selling point there is just pure servant of his union
and
members.
Eddie Dempsey, as a big guy, come on the pod, but we're not even going to do it in here. We're going to take it to the gym. We're going to do gym sesh pod with you.
Gym sesh pod with Eddie Dempsey. That'll go do numbers.
Viral.
And then
Leanne
Mohammed speaks well. I love how she speaks.
Yeah.
And
I mean, she's a good friend of ours. So.
Good friend of ours as well. Also incredibly passionate.
Yeah.
And Leanne Mohammed stood against Wes Streeting in North Ilford at the last election, lost by a few hundred votes.
500 votes.
500 votes. But we'll get him next time.
But then, okay, so we're at this stage then where I guess...
3 politicians you hate. Not hate. Bro. Hate's such a strong word.
No, hate is not strong enough.
Go for it then. But obviously not the obvious one.
Bro, I can't say the obvious one.
No, you can't say the obvious one.
All right, calm.
You get enough airtime on Northstar already.
Keir Starmer.
Yep.
Yvette Cooper.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't rate her because she tries and does the little I'm just innocent, I'm black, whatever.
But she's doing the mad thing with Ed Balls.
Also, you're just taking bare money from Israel. Can't respect that.
Yeah.
Who else? There's so many I could choose from. Kemi Badenoch, not respecting her at all.
Round the corner.
Who's round the corner?
Who we tried?
Oh, Rushnara Ali.
Not even landlords, slumlords. But audience, let us know. Like that's a good thing to think. In the comments, I want to see people's either drop your favorite politicians. Don't have to be MPs, and least favorite.
But then they have to say why because we need to find the common thread. Why is that the case?
Why.
Yeah, for sure.
But where were we? We're talking about the lack of sort of intelligent strategy and actual sort of competence in the political elite. Big problem in the UK. One, because on an incentive basis, there's actually not that much money floating around in politics in the UK. That's why you're seeing Keir Starmer get bought out for a couple of sunglasses. That's why you're seeing...
Or just a young, box at Emirates.
Exactly. You're seeing Angela Rayner get done for Taylor Swift tickets. Do you know what I mean? Sell it down the drain.
You know how would you get got?
Me, I can't get got.
Bro, a couple LCAF premiums for a year? Yeah, sign me up.
But they know me there already, innit? I can get that myself. Even people that recognise me in the streets of London, I'm literally walking through Central.
People recognise you in the streets of London?
Come on.
Is that what happens?
Well, this big head. See me from a mile away, but I'm just bopping through in my Birkenstocks. You can't buy a man like that.
Yeah, the head's getting even bigger now. Gosh.
But there's not much money in politics relative to the UK, relative to the US, sorry. But also, it just isn't framed as important work anymore.
Okay.
And we elevate these people every 4 years to being these great stewards of our society, when in fact, on the day-to-day, the actual functions they perform aren't particularly intellectually animated.
Well, one of the problems as well is the kind of structural reasons behind this, which is that politics has now become a career. And if politics is now a career, then you have a political class who have incentives that are the same across the aisle. And so it's less about, taking a risk and putting out an ideological vision that can kind of galvanize people and, like we say, get votes and put forward a positive vision of how to change the country versus just actually trying to, do your job as a representative, but not kind of step too far out the boundaries because ultimately you're trying to secure your career, you're trying to secure and sustain your career.
That's what I think is honestly so much better. But obviously it's not foolproof because Keir Starmer's a lawyer, but it's so much better when you get politicians who, they don't need to be in Parliament to make a living.
Yeah.
So it's they're here for what they believe in. If for some reason they get booted out of Parliament, just go back to work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And speaking of politicians
are we about to come off of your party?
Yeah, do you have something else to say?
As is tradition, where do we stand on your party?
Yeah, of course. Well, you know me, and I literally called up Amex to get my £5 back.
Yeah.
Some jokes aside, something that Yisrael actually said from last episode, I at some sort of basic level, I respect people just trying.
Of course.
And so, they tried and they're still trying. And
try harder, though.
You got to try a bit harder. But there's good intentions behind it. Whether or not that's from the particular politicians at the top, the people involved obviously still want to make this country a better place. They have good sort of moral principles, like social principles, etc. And so I still respect them, but I think I went from basically having some sort of hope to finding a political home to continuing to being politically homeless.
So I got something to put you on the spot about this after as well. So me, where do I think about
Put me
your
on the
party?
spot. My bad.
But where do I think about your party?
Go on.
Bro, I'm tired. Honestly, I'm at the point now where it's like, I just, you man, do your thing, innit?
Okay.
But I'm fatigued. I actually don't believe in the mission anymore. I'm happy to say that now. I fundamentally do not believe in what they're trying to do anymore.
Okay.
I think they haven't been. They're talking about this broad school. They're talking about this broad coalition. But then there's also talk of there's no space for X, Y, and Z here. But I thought it was your party and it could be developed around whatever the members.
Oh no,
desire.
definitely. I'm definitely with you on that.
So
I'm lost on that.
Fundamentally, I think that it has been hijacked by public figures.
Ego.
No, but I think it's been hijacked by public figures who actually don't have the political strategy or intellectual clarity to develop a party.
Or the intellect.
I'm not going to go that far. But intellectual clarity, I'll say, to develop a party.
Intellectual clarity, intellect, for sure. Fair.
Sean.
Go on then.
The other day, I'm scrolling on TikTok and I see someone saying, oh, this is the kind of the best things that I've consumed this week media-wise. A shout out to you because I was very gassed to see like Northstar politics in there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, yeah, come on the boys. In the comments, it was like left-wing content. In the comments, someone says, oh, but is Northstar, or like I'm looking for like explicitly Marxist stuff. And then the lady who put the TikTok out says, oh, Northstar politics is explicitly Marxist.
Okay, so...
Sean. Sheikh Sean. Muslim Sheikh Sean.
Yeah.
Are you explicitly Marxist?
No, I'm not a Marxist at all. And the reason I'm not a Marxist, probably not for the reasons you think. So I think Marx has... Look, so I studied Marx at university, actually. So this is not some sort of like, oh, I've got the authority and I know a lot about it. But I actually have some deep understanding. Shout out David Leopold. He was my tutor. He was head of Marx and Marxism at Oxford. But look, what do I agree with Marx? I agree with his critique on capitalism. I agree with alienation. I agree with commodity fetishism, etc. Right? The nature between which how we as individuals interact with this very extractive system. And also, let's be honest, like Marxism is different to Marx because there's a lot of Marxist thinkers who come after him, particularly even CLR James, who we have on the table right now. He's a Caribbean Trinidadian Marxist, and I think he has a lot of brilliant views. The reason I'm not a Marxist, though, is because of I don't believe in the same ontological worldview. I'm a Muslim, I'm practicing Muslim, and he has a very materialist understanding of history. The engine of history is caused by class antagonisms, okay? This goes...
Or even more fundamentally, technology.
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah. And that is just not a view I subscribe to. I don't believe that's the case. And I also don't believe that a lot of his predictions have come to pass for obvious reasons. And so... But that's the thing. I don't have to be a Marxist to agree and even vote for Marxists in the political sphere.
And even people at home maybe just even provide more clarity.
Also, wait, are you a Marxist?
No. And even
just quick one, just brush that.
Even to provide more clarity for the people at home, what Sean's saying there, people sometimes misunderstand this when they say, are you a Marxist? Well, being a Marxist isn't actually a view you have on a certain form of government. They say Marxism and communism interchangeable. No, communism is a form of government or a form of state organization. Marxism is a philosophical understanding of how society develops or how politics develops over time. So
history, right?
Yeah, and communism forms a part of that stage process.
Yeah.
And what Sean's saying is that in terms of how he understands history and human development to occur, from a Muslim paradigm, that is quite incompatible with what would be called technological determinism. Fundamentally incompatible with technological determinism of Karl Marx.
Yeah.
I'll ask you another question.
Go on.
Now that we have got past your party conference and all that kind of thing, where do you stand on the socially liberal, economically liberal, progressive dispute? Because I think there's something we've kind of been treading around on the show for a little bit. Because obviously, we probably consider ourselves, or we'll be, and we have been clearly, we'll be tarred under the brush of sort of socially liberal, which we are, or like liberal, progressive, young guys, cool, hip, all of these sorts of things.
Radical.
But how does that intersect with your Islam? Or even myself, someone who's raised strict Catholic, how does that intersect with people who perhaps aren't, like we feel like, yeah, we're down for the cause, but we might not be in for the full gamut of opinions? Yeah,
I mean, so the question is like, where do I kind of see myself and place myself on this kind of like spectrum then, I guess?
Yeah, and how does that create a tension?
I mean, look, but this is the thing, there's always going to be tensions between all types of views and all different worldviews, right? And so, look, I follow sort of classical Islam from a very intellectual perspective, philosophical perspective.
You're hard,
spiritual
my guy.
perspective. But it's true. Like this is the way I've sort of understood the world, and I'm coming to understand the world. And so look, we might have different worldviews, okay? But the problem arises when someone else tries to impose their worldview on another person, right? And so like I'm not here to basically do that in the same way that I think there's a lot of like socially progressive voices in the kind of left-wing space, quote unquote, which to be honest I don't even think is a good term, just to categorize people, that will basically put and push a worldview onto perhaps Muslims and practicing Muslims without even realizing they're doing so. And so I think like there is a tension, but you have to navigate these issues on a case-by-case basis.
No, I think I think you're.
But I don't know what you're reaching for.
But let's go for this because what I'm trying to get to is that explanation there, or that response is one that's often used that makes the issue seem a lot less fundamental. I'll give you my opinion and straight up. I think fundamentally there is a problem between quote unquote socially liberal and socially conservative left-wing people that needs to be had out in public healthily but clearly. And what I mean by this is what you're saying is you think it's fine for people to have disputes and not impose themselves on one another.
Yeah.
That's your response, which is the standard response to go to.
Yeah.
My thing is this. Okay, cool. A traditional Muslim would think, we have men and women.
Okay.
Someone who's more indoctrinated or believes in transgender ideology and believes in transgender people will say, well, no, we don't just have men and women. And they might see themselves as a transgender man. And, someone who's maybe a classic Muslim, but this is the Adnan Hussein problem, will say, well, no, here's a woman. So transgender man, here's a woman to me. And neither one of them is trying to impose their view on the other one. They're not trying to convince you that they're a man or you that they're a woman. But what they're saying is, I'm going to live my life based on what I believe myself to be.
Okay.
And Adnan Hussein, the other side, is saying, I'm going to live my life based on who I believe you to be. And that comes into a material conflict, which can't just be...
Who I believe you to be.
Yeah, which can't just be avoided by saying, people can have their own opinions. Because the opinions end up dictating how people function in real life.
Okay. But then
how do we overcome that impasse? Which is why Adnan Hussein really fundamentally left your party.
Well, look, how do we overcome that impasse? I don't know. But I do think it starts with just having very eloquent articulations from both sides to really put forward that case, and maybe perhaps that public way. Because I think on the one hand, people don't really understand religion. I think that if they hear the word religion, they kind of think of it in the kind of Christianity sense, where you kind of just are able to package it up on a Sunday and let's just go to church, that's it, keep it private.
Christians at home don't have that.
No, but I mean, that's how people think of like modern Christianity anyways. On the flip side though, for Muslims, it's like a totalizing universal experience, right? There's no such difference between the public and private sphere. That doesn't exist in Islam. And so everything you do, from the way you smile to people, to the way you carry yourself, to the way that, perhaps sometimes you articulate your political principles, it needs to basically be consistent with your worldview. Now, one of the reasons I don't think that I think that you can overcome this tension a lot is because there's also inbuilt within Islam specifically a principle not to impose your worldview onto others. And so that's why you kind of have a lot of Muslims who are a bit more relaxed to say, well, actually, okay, you can live the way you want in some certain contexts, because for me to justify or argue against or condemn the way you're living based on these principles, it actually kind of goes against my faith. And so I would live by that as quite a guiding kind of first principle.
Okay, and we won't stick on this for too much longer because we want to have this in part of a
one of in the echo chamber, we might come back to it. But carry on. Yeah.
But just okay. So part of Islam is you don't want to impose your beliefs on someone else. Mm-hmm. But if I saw myself as a transgender woman and I am just acting as I would on a day-to-day basis, doing things that transgender women do, or whatever.
Okay.
Adnan Hussein would say, allow it.
I don't think he would though. He's just not agreeing with the fact that like that person's necessarily like.
But then my thing is just like we can't just say like.
But he's not saying allow it, we have to like stop this person from being transgender. That's not what he's saying.
But then how can ideological disputes manifest themselves in the material without there being an impasse? Because if did you get what I'm saying? And
yeah, but give an example. Make it more tangible.
Like the ideological difference that Adnan Hussein might have with the transgender person.
So one of the debates then on the trans one, right, is the idea that should kids get gender affirming therapy? That's when there's going to be like a clear difference. And so basically we need to like stop hiding behind the labels of like phobia, right? It's not Islamophobia if you disagree with like women wearing a burqa, for example. In the same way, it's not necessarily transphobia if you disagree with a kid having gender affirming surgery before they're able to make conscious decisions at some arbitrary age that we've created or of maturity at 18. And I think it's a willingness to understand, really, that we really need to engender in our discourse. And I think that's what's probably getting lost on a lot of people.
You know, this makes me just run back to like classical liberalism.
Yeah.
Like legitimacy versus truth.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I think everyone's trying to work out, to make a decision. People have forgotten that the sort of fundamentals of liberalism is that we, within the public sphere, we're going to lay claim to what is a legitimate way of organizing ourselves, rather than what is truthful. So democracy came to solve this. Like, even the scientific method is like a claim on legitimacy rather than truth, really and truly. Yeah. And so people are trying to say, what is the objective truth of gender ideology? And that should be what governs the public sphere. When in fact, that will never really be there will never be consensus on that when people are coming from totally different scientific field, be it like religious or otherwise, or empirical. So instead, what we should be reasserting is like legitimacy. What can be actually worked out within the public sphere and consented to by a large enough majority of people that this then becomes sort of an understandable way to organize.
But I think we also just like, again, it comes back to a re-articulation of the social contract as well. So what is modernity then? Well, modernity, there's a great philosopher called Charles Taylor, and he talks about how what's motivating modernity behind it all is really an ethical authenticity. And what he means by that is this sort of, it's a moral ideal that we feel as if, you know, self-determination is all about being true to ourselves and defining our own path. But then obviously there's a tension there, because defining your own path, what does that mean?
You're the subject to defining it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think starting from the first principle that is a very valid human want and need and desire is something that we should definitely agree on. But I just think like it's a difficult one that we need to overcome, because the method for dealing with this has basically ended up becoming like some sort of moral relativism, which is the idea that, you know, people can conclude that no one can judge any values and choices because they're all equally valid to some extent. And there's some sort of literature that Taylor talks about how this becomes the degeneration of authenticity, because, you know, if you don't have meaningful moral standards that you all agree on, then you can't really tell anyone that they're falling short of it.
Yeah, and it feels in a way that kind of like the fundamental pillars of liberalism are caving in on themselves, like this delineation between public and private, this idea of like legitimacy versus truth are starting to cave in, which is kind of causing a lot of these problems.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, it just starts with a conversation, and I guess that's what we're doing now. So don't cancel us, please, because we're just working this out in real time.
We're just trying our best. Literally just trying our best.
But I think we can wrap up the state of play there, because you have a spicy take to give to us.
Let me land. Let's get into it. Therapy is worse than pointless. It is actively harming you.
Fair enough. Like, we're just throwing out all the takes. What? Because I'm leaving. We're just taking it there.
Bro, big take. You want me to unpack that?
Of course, unpack it.
Okay, so I'm going to take this along two different strands. I'm going to look at the philosophical strand. I'm going to look at the personal. And actually, I had a third in there. I'll look at the economic strand of it. So let's start with where should we start? Let's get into the philosophical. So probably borrow a little bit here from Foucault, as you know.
Bro, sorry, I'm going to need therapy after hearing all these sirens, man.
Honestly, bro, ringing in my head. I thought that was just in my head. So we can lean on a bit of Foucault here. Foucault has a brilliant book called Madness and Civilization. And Foucault is of a school of thought where what he's really concerned with is how structures produce knowledge. That knowledge is a claim on objectivity when in fact it is produced within a structure in a certain time, place, and by a certain someone. So it is laden with values inherently. What Foucault would say is that the ideas created in any given society about what is healthy, what isn't healthy, they don't just categorize those that are ill, they also set up norms that people inherently are going to try to push towards. So we could think about ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. These seem like neutral terms, but in fact, they are all relative and comparative descriptors. Attention deficit, hyperactive. These are literally, within the semantics of it, relative terms, relative descriptors. And they are relative to a certain norm that is being implied within that diagnosis. So it sets up for people that even if they might not be considered having ADHD, it sets up ways of behaving people. It is a form of control. It is a form of conducting power relations. And I think a lack of awareness about that and sort of the passive indoctrination we've had into therapy culture around what is illness, what is normal, in effect, tranquilizes a lot of society to the real ills that are going on around them and sees themselves as the private and personal problem to be sort of reformulated to be fit for society, or Foucault would say normalized to be fit for society, normalized to a certain level. Then separately, how I might look at this and how I might inform this with some economic analysis or sort of political economic analysis is this. The need for therapy, or the advent or the development of mental health problems over the past 30, 40 years, whatever it might be, has been clearly an en masse and aggregate problem. Agreed?
Yep, definitely.
We're seeing that en masse. But yet...
Suicide rates are up.
Suicide rates, all sorts of things, depression rates.
Yeah.
All of the indicators are on aggregate, yet the solution is packaged privately. And this is literally the pandemic, the pandemonium pandemic of capitalism. Aggregate problems then repackaged for private solutions. When in fact, clearly, we can even think about this when it comes to like illnesses. If an illness is something that spreads around multiple people, you want to deal with the illness en masse rather than in isolation, because it just simply doesn't work. That's not the function of it. And simply when it comes to the problems that are causing people to have rampant anxiety, stress, depression, suicide, all these sorts of things, these are clearly aggregate problems, but yet we are being trained to cope with it by private and at very large cost packaged professions and industries. That's kind of my thinking.
Okay, sure. So, I think that, well, that's definitely unique. I've never heard someone articulate that before. First, I just want to ask, okay, so it's packaged privately, but let's suppose there is someone who feels depressed right now, okay? Because your claim is that it's pointless, therapy is pointless, but then it doesn't really still feel pointless to actually go speak about one's depression to someone who understands depression, when I can grant you the fact that the reason they're depressed in the first place is very structural, it's multifaceted, etc. Because there's a lot of people who say that depression actually, or therapy for their depression actually helps, right? So it doesn't really seem pointless to me.
No, so I agree that it is really important for people to speak in private to people they care about and have that sort of interpersonal relationship with someone. And what I'll say is that therapy is being resold to people as a solution to something that could have existed otherwise.
But what could have existed otherwise?
So this is like, if we look at the aggregate trends that accompany the aggregate increase in mental health disorders, we're looking at cost of living, people like poor health, social media rampant in people's lives, people unable to live in community with their families, people being displaced all around the country when they're not able to develop communities, lack of job security. In place of that, people are resorting to professional therapy when in the counterfactual, I would hypothesize that they would not have any sort of mental condition in the first place. And their energy has been diverted into trying essentially create that sort of coping mechanism for a society that is punishing them rather than pushing their anger or their attention towards those structures that have pushed them into this situation.
But it sounds a bit too sort of abstract and airy-fairy though, right?
You think so?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, you're trying to pinpoint the kind of...
Let's say someone's been dealing with job insecurity, rising rents, can't live anywhere near their families, NHS waiting times means their parents have fallen ill.
No, so then
they fall into a rampant depression. They then go and seek therapy.
So we should tackle that, right? But then it's still good for them to have some therapy to talk about it, right? Because all that therapy, I think what you need to do is really define properly what you mean by therapy. Because I can also take it down the level of that. Well, if you define therapy as literally just talking your problems out with people.
Well, no, I'm talking about professionalized therapy.
Professionalized therapy
institutions. Okay. I think, and when I say pointless, what I mean basically is that I think they're a net negative. The amount that they obfuscate the real cause of people's problems versus the amount they do to solve them, I think we're in a net there.
But then that claim is basically, so the entailment of that claim is saying that because therapy is a popular thing, we're not actually looking at the real root causes of these issues. But I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think anyone's sort of...
I really think it is.
But who's making that sort of calculation in their head that, like, you know what, therapy exists and therefore, like, I'm not going to, like, worry about actually looking at the root causes?
I think that's exactly what people are doing, because it's packaged as a simple way to help you attain happiness in this world, far simpler than actually attacking what is more of a structural and en masse problem.
So the things that lead you to therapy might be inherently political. I agree with that claim, but then I'm not sure how you can still do the working out to say it's a net negative, because the fact that we have therapists to respond, because bear in mind it's a science, right? So I don't know, are you discounting the nature of psychology or the science of it?
What I'm saying is a science that's aimed around normalizing you towards being able to exist and survive in a system that is fundamentally against your mental health.
So it's, well, I don't know if it's allowing you to... Yeah, but that's okay, right? You know, to allow you to help you exist in a system.
I'll bring it back to the Foucault madness and civilization.
But I'm saying it's not an either or, right? Two can go hand in hand.
I don't think it's an either or, but what I'm saying, I think it's a net negative in the sense that the anger that people might feel, or there's a misplaced energy. People are being... If someone's going through this trauma, or this stress from like their living situation or their lack of job security, and they're given these two alternatives where the initial thing would be like, let me deal with the structures that are causing me this torment. Yeah, but instead what's being packaged them, as we see throughout capitalist society, is this simple quick fix. a way of coping with what's going on in the sort of in the immediate, then of course they're going to be moving towards that, especially when that's the more socially acceptable way of conducting yourself.
But then, so are you saying the more socially acceptable way is like to go to therapy and talk it out, right? So then, what is the alternative then?
Actually attacking the structures that are causing this aggregate level of...
Okay, but what does that mean?
So there is no
tangibly.
alternative.
Yeah.
There's the idea that developed in like Reagan and Thatcher era that there is no alternative to capitalism in the neoliberal world order. And therefore, what that does, if you're able to really cement in someone's mind that there is no alternative to the world that we exist in right now, then the best they can hope for is I need to be able to live with it. Okay? And if we really fundamentally sort of imprint in people's minds that there is no alternative to the structure that you see going on, whether it be gentrification, pushing your family all around the country, lack of housing security, lack of health security, reduction in air quality, no access to green space, whatever it might be, if there is no alternative to this, then the best we can do as an individual is to attain some means to survive and cope with it.
No, definitely. So I definitely don't want to sort of fall into the trap.
But the two things are coupled.
Yeah, so I definitely don't want to fall into the trap of like not being imaginative, because again, we're pushing political imagination. This is the whole point. And I guess your claim is more around like, you know, therapy is a bit of like a band-aid on like a wound, right? So like you're still going to be gushing blood, etc. It's not really going to do much. It might stop a bit, but it's not really going to help fundamentally, something along those lines.
I think oftentimes people...
Well, like paint a picture, paint an analogy. What would you say?
I'm trying to think of the good analogy, but I don't think we have enough time on the podcast
Okay,
to
yeah,
try and cook one
sure.
up. But I feel like therapy is probably more akin to something which distracts in the immediate from a more fundamental problem. So kind of painting over cracks in a house.
So it's like an opium of the people, perhaps?
Yeah, I didn't want to run to that, but yeah. So something along those lines where it creates a level, I also think it creates a level of docility. And bear in mind, I want to caveat all of this by saying that I do think that fundamentally therapy is very useful for people. Yeah. But in its current instantiation in the professionalized therapy industry, BetterHelp and these sorts of things.
All right. Okay, sure. BetterHelp.
Half the mandem is talking to AI.
But is that not just a sort of like a Western focus?
The world is
therapy,
burning.
though?
The world is burning, and then some Silicon Valley geek has got you talking to an AI chatbot to try and solve your stress about the world burning.
But then, look, but the notion of like talking to people, right, has existed throughout human history, having community, family, etc.
I'm talking about the professionalized
I know,
industry.
but then like our communities, for example, like I'm sure, like okay, a Muslim therapist, right, can actually talk to like young people like in an Islamic paradigm. But then they're probably going to charge for their services because they have to get paid for it.
Yeah, what I'll say is this. What I'll say is
so
this,
why
yeah.
is that different?
What I'll say is this. Okay, cool. So whatever private equity company owns the building in which all those therapy clinics are, you're going to therapy. So you're getting stressed out because the rents are going up, and you're going to this therapist and you're paying them £100 an hour because they're getting there. It's like.
But is every But not all problems are economically derived, right? Like you can just go to therapy about like a breakup or an ex or something like that.
Exactly. So I agree. And that's what I mean. Fundamentally, there is a certain level of therapy that is good. But also you see that sort of thing. Like you break up with someone and like you're distraught and you go to therapy for that.
Okay.
I don't know, you know. I think the reason like therapy is being pushed in there is because it is really is being pushed as like a way to purchase a interaction that supplants social cohesion or supplants like a community.
But then it's also because like I guess, but like in someone's individual experience, they might not have access to that. So like the only things they can do.
So why?
Yeah, why they might not is for a bunch of reasons. But
let's think about them.
No. I'm saying we can think about them, but I'm not saying.
That's my point.
But that doesn't. But then there's still utility in the therapist.
No, but I'm saying, of course, there's utility.
I know you're saying net.
Yeah,
right?
but the net is that let's think about those reasons why they're not able to have a community around them. When they break up, they now have to pay £50 an hour to speak to some graduate from wherever.
But then I just think I just don't know if I'm there with you on a lot of it.
When
but I don't know if I'm that right.
Instead, imagine this: they go through this horrible breakup. They turn around and say, "Oh, crazy! Like, why do I have no one I can talk?"
Put it this way, yeah. In that imaginary world, that ideal world we live in, I don't know what it is, whatever we call it. We're not a Marxist podcast, so we're not going to say it's communism. That's a joke for people listening.
Yeah, joking.
In that world, I still think therapists is going to have like a function, a need, a use. People will still pay for therapists. It's still going to be a useful thing that people have.
Yeah. I agree. In that world, it wouldn't be a negative. In the current world we exist in, it's being used en masse for cope with current social structures.
I don't know how spicy this is though, because I think you're just basically saying like the problem's deeper.
Yeah, no, I'm saying the problem's deeper, and you are actively blinding yourself to it with a lot of like professional therapy industry. Like even, bro, like why are so many people in therapy? Like, is that not insane to people? Why is like BetterHelp able to afford ads on every single podcast? We wouldn't take an ad from them.
No, well, I definitely don't think it's a good thing that people in therapy, and I definitely think it's indicative of something quite deeper. But I think we'll leave it there. Did he land that?
I landed.
Did he land that?
If I didn't land that, yeah, it's because of the therapist. You know what I'm saying? If I didn't land that.
Oh gosh.
But let us know what you think though, because I obviously when we talk about Let Me Land, I'm trying to get an idea out and work it through myself.
Sure.
And I want to hear what people at home say. So please leave them comments. All that kind of
Is
jazz.
he getting too esoteric, or did he land that plane smoothly?
But also sometimes there's a motive. Maybe I'll come back and I'll land a different plane in the other direction. Maybe, but that's currently what I'm feeling.
Well, the next time we'll do this is in the new year, in person. That is.
I've got to wait a whole month for my next therapy session. Crazy.
Noah, episode 9, bro. I'm sad I'm not going to be able to do one of these in person for the next 3 weeks.
Bro, it's going to be mad. It's literally my weekly routine.
I can't lie, the dopamine hits, yeah. Like, we be going up and up and up. But then in this online period,
yeah,
it's going to go down.
All the views and whatnot might go down, but I'm not like me. I'm not as much of a view watcher. So I kind of got into that habit, but do it for the love of the game.
And also, the quality is still going to be good. In person, online, does not matter. Look, before I get into just being Oliver Twist again and begging the viewers at home, is there anything that you want to leave the viewers with?
Recommend and whatnot.
Yeah.
As in, literally, just go subscribe to my Substack. Over the winter period, especially while Sean's away, going to be writing a lot. Yeah. Noah East 9 on Substack. I think it's good stuff on there.
I'm also going to be writing again, get him into my writing bag again. So definitely subscribe.
And subscribe to the Northstar one as well.
Yeah, subscribe to Northstar one. So Noah East 9 on all socials, Sean Ramiz on all socials. And again, we just want to reiterate, we're probably going to put out a little bit of a campaign for you to help support us. And where you actually donate is northstarpolitics.com/support.
And also, just to remind people, we literally film in a charity location. So the majority of that money will be just going straight to charity.
No, definitely. We really just want to find a way to kind of, pay back the costs, etc. But also, listen, we have so many ambitions for this, and we're
big things already booked in.
I know, and we're so grateful for how far this has come already. The fact that this once upon a time was just a little dream in our heads, and now it's become a reality. People are coming up to us on the streets talking about how much they want to get involved, giving us topics to talk about. It's been surreal.
Shout out the stars them each and every time.
Shout out the stars them. But listen, thank you so much for tuning in, liking, commenting, subscribing, supporting. I'm not going to be able to say that for a while. But yeah, until next time, which for me it's probably going to be online in a digital life. Take care, keep your eyes on the North Star, and thank you so much for tuning in.